Right now, you are sitting somewhere warm. You probably do not think about that. The temperature is controlled, the walls keep the wind out, food is close by. But strip all of that away. Every wall, every switch, every stored meal, and ask yourself what you would actually do. Because roughly 20,000 years ago, your ancestors faced exactly that question. And the Ice Age did not give them time to think. The last glacial maximum was not a story. It was a planetary emergency. Temperatures dropped so far that ice sheets 2 miles thick covered what is now New York, London, and Moscow. The sea level fell by more than 400 feet. Entire ecosystems vanished. And in the middle of all of that, a small, naked, relatively weak primate decided it was going to survive. Not just survive, outlast it. The first thing your ancestors did was something that sounds obvious but required a cognitive leap that almost no other animal ever made. They moved with the animals. Not randomly, strategically. Archaeological evidence from sites across Europe and Siberia shows that Ice Age humans tracked megafauna migration routes with extraordinary precision. They knew where the woolly mammoths would be in spring. They knew where the reindeer crossed the river in autumn. Researcher Olga Sofer of the University of Illinois spent decades studying Upper Paleolithic sites and found that these camps were not random. They were positioned deliberately at animal crossing points, river bends, and seasonal bottlenecks, exactly the places where prey would funnel through. Your ancestors were not chasing animals. They were waiting for them, in the right place, at exactly the right time. But tracking animals only gets you so far when the wind is cutting at minus 40 degrees. So your ancestors solved the cold in a way that is almost shocking in its ingenuity. They built shelters out of the animals they killed. At sites like Mezerich in Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered the foundations of structures built entirely from mammoth bones. More than 150 mammoth bones in a single structure. Skulls used as anchors, long limb bones arched overhead, animal hides stretched across the frame. These were not crude windbreaks. These were engineered structures, carefully designed to trap heat and resist the brutal steppe winds. Researcher Mikhail Pitoplichko, who excavated Mezerich in the 1960s, estimated that constructing one of these shelters required the equivalent of dozens of mammoths and months of coordinated effort. Think about what that means. Your ancestors were running construction projects during an ice age using only the materials the frozen landscape could provide. And then there was fire. But not fire the way you imagine it. Not a lucky lightning strike. Controlled, sustained, transported fire. Your ancestors carried fire with them. Archaeologist Dennis Sangath at Simon Fraser University has studied fire use across Ice Age sites in Europe and found evidence that early humans maintained fires over long periods, not just lighting them when needed, but keeping them alive through brutal winters as a continuous resource. They used specific stones, flint and pyrite, to reliably spark new flames when old ones died. They packed embers in fungus and bone to transport fire across distances. Fire was not just warmth. It was a technology they refused to let go of. It was the difference between camp and catastrophe. Food storage was another survival method that required thinking your ancestors had almost no precedent for. When you kill a mammoth in autumn, you cannot eat it all at once. So what do? You use the Ice Age itself as your freezer. Pit storage sites have been found across Siberia and Eastern Europe, where Ice Age humans buried meat deep in the permafrost, preserving it for months. Researcher John Hofecker at the University of Colorado has documented these storage pits at multiple sites dating back over 25,000 years. Your ancestors were not just surviving day to day, they were planning seasons ahead. They were thinking in timescales that required abstract reasoning, memory, and coordination across a group. That is not animal behavior. That is something new. Clothing in this period became a precision technology. The sewing needles found at Ice Age sites are extraordinarily fine, some less than 2 millimeters in diameter. These were not just needles that pushed thread through hide. These were needles fine enough to create layered, fitted, windproof garments with insulated inner layers and waterproof outer layers. Researcher Olga Sofer also analyzed impressions left in fired clay at Pavlov in the Czech Republic and found evidence of woven textiles dating back 27,000 years. Woven, not just hide, actual fabric. Your ancestors were not just staying warm. They were engineering their clothing the same way a modern outdoor company engineers a winter jacket, layer by layer, problem by problem. And through all of it, the cold, the hunger, the darkness, they did something that no survival manual would tell you to do. They made art. Deep inside caves like Lascaux and Chauvet, painted at a time when the world outside was a frozen wasteland, your ancestors painted animals with a skill and an emotional intensity that still stops people cold today. Researcher Ian Davidson at the University of New England argues that this art was not decoration. It was cognitive infrastructure. It was how Ice Age humans organized knowledge, passed down information about animals, and maintained the social bonds that made group survival possible. The art was the network, the cave was the server, and the paintings were how your ancestors kept their world alive in their minds when the physical world was trying to kill them. Here is the thing that makes all of this extraordinary. These survival methods were not the work of geniuses. They were not the work of outliers. They were the collective output of communities under impossible pressure, generation after generation, slowly building a toolkit that would eventually allow Homo sapiens to survive every climate, every continent, and every catastrophe the planet could throw at them. You are sitting somewhere warm right now, because somewhere in your lineage, someone figured out how to read a mammoth migration. Someone built a house out of bones. Someone kept a fire alive through a winter that would have killed most modern people in a week. The Ice Age did not break your ancestors. It built them. And it built you.